Thank you very much. So I am the Assistant School Program Coordinator, which is kind of a strange title, but really what I help do is I help run the education program for the school year. Part of that job includes going out to the schools and talking to the students and parents about what they're going to see, what they should think of in terms of packing. So what I'm going to do tonight is go through with you very quickly the slideshow that I showed the kids this afternoon. I won't make you participate like I made the kids do, but you'll get a chance to see a little bit of what they're going to be doing while they're there. After that, I'm going to go over some more in-depth medical and health information that I'm sure you're curious about. And then after that, if you still have some questions, if I've left anything out, I'll definitely give you some time to ask anything you need to. So we're in West Greenwich, Rhode Island. It's about 45 minutes from here for the buses. If you're familiar with Rhode Island, we're about 20 minutes from Providence. If you're more familiar with the Mystic, Connecticut area, we're about 20 minutes from there. So kind of halfway between those two. And again, about 45 minutes for you guys on the bus. We are 2,300 acres. That's our entire campus. Part of that is our Whispering Pines Conference Center. That's on the other side of campus from where we are. They host weddings, different kinds of retreats, events like that. We don't have much to do with them. In fact, I very rarely even get over to that side of the campus. We have about 1,000 acres that's set aside just for research purposes. So they have set aside, no human is allowed to enter that area. And then we have about 10% of that for our school programs. So we have trails that go through the woods, we have open fields. We have a lake, which is what you see here. The lake is a little bit far for our school year purposes, so we don't use that very much. It's really just for summer camp stuff. But we do have wetlands a little bit closer to our environmental ed center that the kids are going to be exploring while they're there. We're named W. Alton Jones after the man on your left. He was the president and CEO of City Service Oil Company, or CITGO. As you can imagine, a very wealthy man. He became really good friends with Dwight Eisenhower when he was the commander of the Allied forces during World War II. Obviously, they had a very special relationship. One provided oil, one needed oil, so that's how they got to know each other, and they became really good friends. To the point that we assume that's why Mr. Jones purchased our property. Up until then, he had no real relationship with Rhode Island. He had properties like ours all over the United States, a lot of properties in New York specifically. But we think that his relationship with Eisenhower, who had property in Newport, kind of brought him into our area. So the two of them would go hunting and fishing and barbecuing and hang out together occasionally. And after Mr. Jones passed away, his wife did not need the money. She didn't need the property. So she was asked by the caretaker of our property to donate the land to his alma mater, which was the University of Rhode Island. So she did, and in the very early 60s, we first opened for Providence area schools to come. And then as soon as we were able to build cabins a couple years later, we had students coming from Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New York, which we still do, staying for science programs, some of our history programs. We offer adventure programs, and of course our evening stuff. So all of those areas, your students will be able to check out while they're there. So the first thing that the kids are going to see is their buses pull up. We'll wave hello, welcome them there. We'll get their bags off the bus, and then they're going to have to move their bags to the cabins. So if you're helping your child pack, it's probably a good idea to check the weight of the bag, make sure they can actually move it. It's not a very far walk, but it is important to remember that they are going to have to transport their bag from the bus to the cabin in some way, shape, or form. We have 6 cabins. Each is a little bit different. There are some that can hold 16. There are some that can hold 20 and one that can hold 24. So I'm not sure which of these cabins your child is going to be in while they're there, but I will show you the inside of one of them just so you get an idea of what they might want to pack, what they look like. If you're planning on being a chaperone, you'll get an idea of the area you'll be sleeping in. One thing to keep in mind when the students come to our campus, they're going to be split into what are called cabin groups. And these are, as it sounds, are groups that they're going to be in the same cabin together. And these are split boys and girls, so it's not mixed in that regard. So the cabins have bunks. They do not have sheets on them for obvious reasons. So bedding is something that you will definitely need to make sure they bring with them. The cabins are heated, so if it happens to be cool, usually temperature is not an issue, but comfort definitely is. So please make sure you send them either with a sleeping bag, because that's pretty convenient, or if you don't have a sleeping bag, sorry about that, then just some sort of sheets, a blanket, or a pillow, or something they can put on their bed. We have bathrooms inside. Some people are very surprised to hear that, but yes, they're inside. We have hot water, and there are 2 showers, 2 toilets, 2 sinks in each of the cabins. But as you can see, again, there's not much else there. So you want to make sure that they bring some sort of toiletries, toothbrush, toothpaste, shampoo, towel, things like that. You will have a packing list, and I am going to touch on a couple things after this, but I'm just sort of highlighting things as you go. And then in each of the cabins is a chaperone room. So some of you, I think, are planning on attending as a chaperone, and your room is located right off of where the kids sleep, inside the same cabin. You're there for obvious reasons, making sure that they are behaving, making sure that they, if they're not feeling well, if they're feeling homesick, making sure you can provide some sort of support for them. But then also just making sure they go to bed on time, making sure they wake up on time. And right next to our cabins is our Environmental Education Center. So this is sort of the hub of our operations here. Inside this building there are classrooms that we utilize kind of here and there. But what the kids really like it for the best is the dining hall. And while the kids are on our campus, they're going to be divided into separate groups, and these are called field groups. So the field groups are mixed boys and girls, and they're usually about 10 to 12 students in each group. And they stay with these groups for all of their programs and all of their meals. We do our meals family style, which means basically that we don't want all the kids getting up and running around. So we have at each meal, one person from each group goes up to get a tray of food for their group. They bring it back and they pass the dishes around saying please and thank you, hopefully. And then at the end of every meal we have two students who we call the vultures who help clean up. The only students who are exempt from these duties are ones who have food allergies. We don't want to risk any sort of cross-contamination. But otherwise they're going to help at each meal either setting up, getting the food, or cleaning up. Right next to our dining hall is our nurse Diana's office. Diana's number and information is on your medical form, and you can feel free to give her a call at any point if you have any questions. I'm going to go over some more stuff after this with regard to medicine, but just so you can kind of put a face with the name. She's located next to the dining hall for reasons of kids who take prescriptions usually take them around a certain meal time. There are also lots of times when we happen to be in that general area, like right before bed. So for those reasons, any kid who needs to see the nurse for any reason, usually they're there at a convenient time. So if they take medication, for example, in the morning, they can go up to the nurse's office during breakfast. Same thing with lunch, dinner, cabin time, bedtime. All those times are going to be in her general area. And the first day that the kids arrive, she's going to introduce herself to them, go over some important information that they might need to know, and let them know where her office is. And then right next to our EEC is a rec field. You can kind of see the cabins in the background there. And I show this to the kids just to let them know we do have what we call rec time. They probably call recess after every meal. They don't need to pack anything for this though. They don't need to bring any sports equipment, no soccer balls, footballs, anything like that. We have all that stuff there, so if you see them trying to shove something in their bag, just tell them, say that, leave it at home. So the programs they're taking are a mix of science, history, and adventure. I'm going to go over a couple of these just so you kind of get an idea of what they're going to be studying. In wildlife ecology, we're talking, of course, about the animals in our area. One thing I do like to make clear, because people do get a little concerned when they think of being out in the woods, we don't have bears on our campus. They're very rare in Rhode Island, and occasionally they'll meander over from Connecticut, but we have no proof of any bears being on our campus at any point. The other thing I will remind you is that we have 2,300 acres of space. So while the wildlife is probably exactly the same as the wildlife you guys have here, they have a lot more room to spread out on our campus. So if they hear a bunch of 6th graders heading through the woods, they usually take off. But that being said, there are a couple of things. You usually see a lot of deer and squirrels and chipmunks and rabbits and groundhogs, things like that, a lot of different types of birds. But even if they can't see any wildlife, we have tons of evidence of it everywhere. And that teaches us a lot about how those animals live and function in our ecosystem. So, for example, our beaver dam, they're pretty active at night, so we've been really lucky having kids actually be able to see them. But even if they can't, again, there's evidence of it. We work with the birds. We actually feed them all year round, especially this time of year. They become very friendly with us. And then wetland ecology, again, just like our wildlife ecology, we're studying our ecosystem and the living and non-living factors in this case. When they are thinking about packing footwear, it's probably a good idea to remember that they're going to be in some of the wetlands. Inevitably, someone is going to step where we ask them not to step. I did it myself just the other day by accident. So please make sure that you keep in mind they're going to be in some muddy, wet areas. It's probably not best to bring brand new shoes or shoes that they really care a lot about. We'll let them go ponding, and we'll see what they can find. Some things will be familiar to them, like a salamander, for example. Some things might not be quite so familiar. We have a caddisfly nymph right here, which is an organism. It's kind of like a worm, builds a little home around itself at this stage of its life. It will eventually move out. So we'll get a chance to identify some of the things in the wetlands that they may never have realized were there. And then again, we're talking about living and non-living factors. So that includes the rocks, the water itself, the animals, the insects, and the plants. And a lot of times we'll test water for various things. Right here they're doing a test for oxygen levels. We also test it for acidity and talk about what that means for some of the organisms that live there. Predator-prey, as I was telling the kids today, nobody really thinks of this as one of our science programs, but it actually is. They really think about it as a big giant game of tag. But the kids are going to be divided up into groups. They're going to represent one level of the food chain. So some of them might be hawks, some of them might be minks, snakes, or mice. In this activity, actually, both groups are going to be doing this together that Wednesday morning. So the first group will still be there, the second group will arrive, we'll do predator-prey, and then the groups will split again. And again, it's kind of like a big game of tag where the predators can, what we call, attack the prey. When they see a group of someone lower on the food chain, they have 10 seconds to try to tag as many kids as they can. If they get tagged, they go back to our life cycle station, and then once the groups get enough resources or enough prey, they can come back and get new animals to add to their group. It's a lot of fun. We have a great time with the groups when they do that. So moving into the history category, Living History is an interactive program. So what we mean by that is the kids play a part as well. So we'll talk to them about life in the 1800s in New England, and then they're going to go out into our village of West Greenwich in the year 1832. I'm not sure why we picked that specific year, but we did, and that's what we use. And the kids will go around the town, and they're going to meet various characters, various types of townspeople that would have been around then. The great thing about our campus in particular is that we have a lot of information about the people who have lived there over the last couple hundred years. So we can actually incorporate some real people from the town of West Greenwich into our village. So they might meet a housewife or a spinster, a blacksmith, they might meet a tavern owner or a school teacher, lots of different characters. There's a doctor or a midwife. And we'll let them play some games that children would have played back then. And this works really nicely with our archaeology program. As I said, we have a lot of information that people have kept up with over the years about the people who have lived on our campus before. For about 200 years, it was owned by a group of farmers, some of the people who actually started the town of West Greenwich. And we have a lot of different house foundations, different aspects of our campus that are still around that they're allowed to explore. We'll let them go on an archaeological dig at some of the foundations and see what they're able to find. What they're able to find tells them a lot about what happened to that house, what types of people they were when they lived there. Anything they find at the archaeological dig is legitimately there. We don't plant anything. And sometimes they find some really cool stuff that we'll display in our display case. Graveyards are also a great place to find information about people. I know it looks and sounds kind of creepy, but it's not. The main cemetery on our campus is a really interesting place. We have graves that go back to the late 1700s. Some that are pretty illegible, but again, people have done a really great job of keeping up with the records. So we have a really nice pamphlet of information that the West Greenwich Historical Society has kept for us with the information on the stones and about the people who lived and died on our campus. So in the evening, they will do two programs one night. The first is called Mysterious Thing. In the Mysterious Thing, we build a mysterious thing out of whatever materials we feel like using. And the groups are going to be divided into 4 stages. So the first stage of their group can see this thing that we built. They're in a room alone with it, and it's their job to try to describe that to stage number 2. The second stage then needs to take that information to stage number 3 and tell them what materials they need to get. Stage number 3 will try to get those materials and then explain to stage number 4, who on the other side is trying to replicate the thing that we've built. So on one side the group can see, part of the group can see it, on the other side they're trying to build the exact same thing, and in between they're trying to relay the information. That same night we'll do the egg drop. What we do is we give them an egg, a real egg, and we'll put it in a Ziploc bag for any allergies. But other than the Ziploc bag, it's their job to come up with finding materials that they want to use. So we gather things like tree bark, pine cones, pine needles. They have yarn and some tape, and it's up to them to decide what they want to get and how they want to build something around their egg. because they will then drop it, of course. So each group will present their egg, and we'll take turns as each group goes around and see which egg lasts the longest. And then finally, we have a new games. If anybody's familiar with the new games movement, came out of the late 60s. The idea of this is that there are no winners or losers in these games. They're a lot of fun, but again, it's sort of promoting teamwork and promoting working together, promoting having a good time, but without any winners or losers. So there's a lot of different things, a lot of things like blob tag or activities like that. That's it for their programming. So let me just go over a couple packing things and some medical things, and then I'll turn it back over to your teachers. I forgot the camera lights. So with regard to packing, you will have a nice list that is provided to you. Please keep in mind that that list is not seasonal. So we give that to groups that are coming right now. We give that to groups that are coming in June. So just obviously use common sense when helping your students pack. Things to keep in mind, again, bedding, so sleeping bag, sheets, pillow, blanket, something like that. Toiletries of any sort. And then making sure they have good footwear. So by this I mean it has to be closed-toed, covering their whole foot. Anytime they're outside the cabin, they have to have closed-toed shoes on. I highly recommend shoes that they don't mind getting dirty, because as you saw in some of the pictures, it can be a little muddy in some spots. And the other thing too is that if it's raining, as long as the weather conditions aren't dangerous, we're outside. So keep that in mind, in terms of trying to keep their feet dry. If you can send them with waterproof shoes, that's always a great idea. We don't want you buying anything special though, so 2 pairs of sneakers if they, if they need to switch off, or at least just extra socks, so we can try to keep their feet nice and dry. Same thing with their gear, coats, things like that. Looking at the weather ahead of time is great. Just make sure they're prepared to be outside if it is raining. You don't need to get any fancy raincoat, anything like that. Go to Walmart, get a 99-cent poncho. They work great. Kids love them. Not a big deal if they lose them. Not a big deal if they rip or something like that. So that's what I would recommend, just making sure that they understand and you understand that we're going to go outside as much as possible. Things they can leave at home. Any sort of electronics, so cell phones, iPads, iPods, Kindles, Nooks, things like that. The reason for that is, well, there are a couple reasons for that. First of all, as I just said, we're going to be outside in all kinds of weather. So the chances of things getting broken or left in the middle of the woods or dropped in the pond are pretty high. So I would just recommend that if there's something that they care about or you care about, just leave it at home. They're not going to have time to use that stuff. We keep them really busy from the time they wake up until they go to bed. It's only 2.5 days. They can live without their electronics. If they like to read before they go to bed, just send them with a book. They still work if they get wet. They open up really nicely and they're ready to go right when you're ready to read them. And then in terms of cell phones, if we need to reach you, we have information that you have provided to us with your home phone, your cell phone, your work phone, secondary contact, emergency contact. As long as you've given us as many ways of reaching you as you can, we can reach you when we need to. So if there's any reason that we need to call you, we can certainly do that. But the cell phone service is not great on our campus, so if you send your kid with a cell phone, they try to call you, but the call drops. You don't know why they're calling you. You call us hysterically. We don't know that they even tried to call you because they're not supposed to have a phone. We don't know what's going on. I think it's potential for a lot of hysteria over what could possibly be nothing. So again, if they need to reach you, we will make sure that we can do that. But please just leave the cell phones at home. They can bring cameras. Digital cameras are fine. I recommend the disposables because it's not a big deal if they get lost. But just remind them they're responsible for making sure that they bring those things back, making sure they take care of them. Also, please leave home any food. This means candy, gum, juice, soda, anything like that we don't want in the cabins. If there's a medical reason for a child to have food in the cabins, we'll know because you will have very nicely written that on the med form, and we can make sure that we are all on the same page about that. But otherwise, we really don't want any food in the cabins. We don't want mice coming in, and they will. They smell food. So as long as we can keep food out of there, we keep mice out of there. And also, we don't want to put anybody's health at risk if there are children with food allergies. So please leave all that stuff at home. We keep them really well fed. That's not something that you even need to worry about. Moving on to the medical information. As I mentioned, you have the medical form. It has our nurse's information on there. Please just make sure you're as accurate as possible. If something changes after you submit your medical form, let us know. The kid breaks a leg, something like that. We can accommodate any kind of ability, We just need to know ahead of time. It's not fair for the child to get to our campus and we're not aware that they've broken their leg. We're not aware that they have a special dietary need. They feel isolated, they feel sort of left out of things because we're trying to figure out really quickly how to make this work. So as long as we know ahead of time, we can make sure that we get them the food that they need, we can make sure we can plan our routes, so it all just works seamlessly. So please just make sure you really put thought into your medical form when you're filling it out. You'd be surprised at some of the things that we get there. And please just make sure that you're accurate about the medical or the medicine that you're providing. We can't take pills in a random bag, so please keep the stuff in its original packaging and just make sure that it matches up with what you've written on the medical form. Even if it's over-the-counter medication, our nurse still will hold on to that. I know that some of your kids are probably used to, for example, maybe taking an ibuprofen if they have a headache. We still want to be the ones to make sure that we see them first because you don't really know what could be bringing a headache on. Also, they're on a different schedule than they're normally used to being on, so they may not remember when they took something. If they go through us, we write it down, we know exactly when they've taken something. If we need to call you for any reason, we have all the information that we need in order to update you. So please just make sure that you hand all that stuff in just like you would with prescription medication. We'll hold on to all of that at the nurse's office and make sure that your child gets whatever they need. That being said, though, you don't need to send, Tylenol or ibuprofen unless your child maybe is prone to headaches and you think it might be a good idea. But otherwise, we have all that stuff there. If for some reason we, are thinking about administering that kind of medication, we'll give you a call. We'll let you know what's going on. We'll ask your permission, and we'll go through it that way. So you don't have to send something. If you want to, you're welcome to. In terms of dietary information, there are a couple of things I just want to make sure I highlight. Again, the nurse is a great resource. Linda Fraunfelter, I'm not sure if her information is on that medical form, but if you call Diana, she's going to direct you to Linda. Linda can go over with you the dietary information in terms of what the menu is going to be. If you have any concerns in that area, if you want to make sure that we have gluten-free stuff, if you want to make sure that we have the appropriate dairy-free stuff, things like that, you're certainly welcome to give her a call and go through that with her. And then one other thing I just want to let you know, if you have any concerns about your child coming to the campus, you want to come over and see what it looks like, we're happy to give you a tour. Just give us a call, let us know when you want to come over. We do have an open house, which will be in May. I'm not exactly sure the date of it yet, they haven't planned it, but you're more than welcome to attend that, and we'll let your teachers know when that's going to be. And then finally, just so you are aware, and I went over this with the children today, about our behavior policy. Basic rule of thumb is that any rules that are in effect at their school are in effect at our school. And I remind them we are a school, we just have our classes outside. Our teachers are teachers, they're people with degrees in teaching. Some of them are certified, have their master's in certification, they just prefer this environment instead of a classroom environment. So, they need to make sure that they're thinking of it in terms of that, and in terms of their behavior as well. So we have what's called a 4-strike system. Strike 1 would be like a verbal warning, letting them know they did something wrong. Strike 2 would be they'd miss some rec time. They would meet with the principal of our school, the teachers from your school. Strike 3, we would call you, let you know what's going on. They would sit in for some of the programming. And then strike 4, they would have to go home. So just so you know what behavior is expected of them, and they know what behavior is expected of them. Hopefully we won't have any issues, but I just like to make sure that everybody understands, what they're expected of while they're there. It should be fun. We want everyone to have fun, but we want it to be safe. We want it to be a controlled fun. So with that, I will, did you guys want to say anything first? You want me to open up for questions?
I'm going to talk first, and then we can have questions all at once. Give me just 1 second. I just want to set up my computer so I can show you where all the forms are. So while I'm waiting for this, I just want to go over this blue form with you a little bit. All the forms are actually on our website, so hopefully this will work. If not, The instructions are right here also. Yeah, it is working. So, all right. So, I'll talk about the week in just one sec. But to get to all the forms, you just go to Parent Links right over here, Grade 6 Camp. And then you can see all the forms right over here. The JMS permission slip, Save the Bay permission slip, which is one of our day trips, a chaperone waiver, the Alton Jones medical form, which Frances was talking about with all the information, including the nurse contact information. And she is really good. If you have any questions, her number's on there, give her a call. She's very reassuring, and she'll really allay a lot of fears or any questions you have. The behavior contract, which has to be signed by both you and your children. The packing list. This one is actually different than the one that they use for everybody. This one is just for us, just for our week, or our half week. So it's very specific. It says pretty much down to the number of things of t-shirts you bring. So it says, 3, 4, whatever number of t-shirts are there for half a week at camp in June. So you can pretty much go by that packing list, and you don't really need anything that's not on the packing list. There's a list, like Frances said, of things not to bring, any electronics except for a watch, a flashlight, and if they want a camera. I wouldn't make it a really nice digital camera. Things tend to drop out of pockets when people are running. They get wet. If it rains, we do the exact same thing. It's going to rain one day just about every week, unless it's thunder and lightning, in which case they have plenty of space inside. And then there's a Corey form here. If you're interested in chaperoning either the overnight trips or the day trips, you can fill out the Corey form, and you have to bring that back in before, obviously, you can do that. And then there are just links to all 3 of our 2 day trips, Lloyd Center and Save the Bay, and then the Alton Jones link is right here. You can find out more about all of those, a little bit more information there. So, can you turn those on? So, I just want to review how the week's going to work. You can see at the bottom how the homerooms are split up, and you can see that the first group will go to Alton Jones. They'll go Monday morning, first thing in the morning, and then they'll be there all day Monday, Monday night, all day Tuesday, Tuesday night, and they'll be there till Wednesday at about lunchtime. They'll come back, and they'll be back in time for the end of the school day, although they can't actually take the regular bus home because they're not allowed on there with all the big bags. Same thing for when they come to school. They actually need you to drive them there because they can't get on the bus with an overnight bag or 3 days worth of clothes or all that stuff. They can if they're going to day field trips though. Thursday, that same group that was just at camp will go on a day field trip to Save the Bay. Friday, they'll go on a day field trip to the Lloyd Center, both environmental centers. Save the Bay is out of Narragansett in Rhode Island also, not too far away from these guys. And the Lloyd Center is in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. They're both roughly an hour or so away by bus. We take coach buses for the Alton Jones trip, mostly because we need a place to store all the clothes and all the bags underneath. We take school buses for the other ones because they're less expensive and we don't need the storage in that case. And for both of the day trips, they do get back in time to take either the regular bus or the late bus home, or obviously you can come pick them up. The other half will do the opposite thing, just switch. Monday, Save the Bay, Tuesday, Lloyd Center, and Wednesday through Friday, we'll go to Alton Jones. The only thing that might change slightly here, and we have to look at numbers and call Save the Bay and the Lloyd Center, is right now, homeroom 205, Mr. Chamberlain's homeroom, is split in half. We did that because we weren't sure if Save the Bay and the Lloyd Center could accommodate 4 homerooms at once, which is almost 100 kids. So we're going to check into that. We'd rather not split them up if possible, but if we can't do that, then it's going to stay split up. So this is basically like a cheat sheet for you guys. All the things you need to fill out. It also says when the payments are due. We've been getting a lot of those little yellow forms that we sent home with the first wrong, incorrect meeting date on them. But if you don't have one of those, I don't know if it's on here. It might be in the general information about Environmental Education Week. I have a feeling this is it. But the first payment is due to Walpole Public Schools of $175, November 28th. And the second one is to be determined for a few reasons. We're not sure the date. It's going to be sometime in March, but there are also various fundraisers that students can do to bring down their own individual cost of camp. And we're not quite sure of the exact overall cost of camp within a few dollars, but we want to get that precisely right before we send out a notice to everybody. So everybody will get a notice eventually saying exactly how much the second payment is. On that note, we do have financial aid available for anybody who requests it. We have a limited amount, but you just send a note in or an email in to either your child's homeroom teacher or to Mrs. Esmond, and they'll get back to you pretty quickly about that. We have the websites on here as well, and I think that's all the basic information. Let me just see, I wrote a few notes here. Oh, if you are chaperoning on one of the overnight trips, there's a $25 discount for your child for every night you chaperone, so it's a little incentive to get you chaperoned. So I don't know if $25 is enough, if they like free or we pay you or something, but we'd certainly love to have you. Obviously, if you're the opposite gender that your child's coming, you chaperone a different cabin, but we'd certainly love to have you there if your child's willing to have you there and if you're available. You can stay at Alton Jones all day and just go hiking. You can go shopping at Providence Place and just come back. We need you from 4 to 5?
Yep.
4 to 5 p.m., which is when cabin time is. The kids just go back and they relax in their cabins and they can take a rest, they can read, they can play little games, time to shower, but just a relaxing time. And then we'll need you for our morning meal, breakfast at 8, and dinner at 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then basically from 4 o'clock all the way till the end of the night. They have an evening program where you get to relax. You can go out and watch the evening program if you want to a little bit. But basically you'll be sleeping in the cabin overnight in the chaperone room. There'll be 2 chaperones in each cabin. The ratio is about 1 to 10, or sometimes a little bit, well, right around there basically. A little bit higher or lower depending on how many students are in the cabins. And you just stay there till the morning. If you can make it and you have to go to work early, we can always find coverage for breakfast for you. If you're just going one night, if you're staying there the whole time, you have a little mini vacation basically. But we'd love to have you whichever half is possible, which is why we gave you the schedule. So if you are interested in chaperoning, then you can set that aside. And as for the homeroom 205, we're going to try to figure that out. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it before Thanksgiving, but I don't see any reason why not. And we'll just email everybody and let them know, or Mr. Chamberlain will email his homeroom, let them know which half they're going. Let's see.
Dan?
Yeah.
If I'm a parent chaperone, what is my commitment and what do I do?
Your commitment is just to be there during that time and supervise the children. You don't have to do any instruction. When you get to camp, there'll be a little orientation. School program coordinator Morelby will just pull everybody aside. You'll get a brief introduction of what you do, what your duties are, a list of who the students are. If there's any other pertinent information you need to know, she'll tell you then. And it's a fairly relaxed job. You know, you watch them when they're sleeping, you make sure they turn off the lights. It's like a giant sleepover, basically. So,
They stay how long?
they stay until the morning time, so, and then they can go. The only thing we ask is that when you're there as a chaperone, if you chaperone, you sort of have to follow the camp rules also. So obviously if you need to, you know, use your cell phone or something like that, the kids are going to understand. But, you know, we've had in the past, we've had makeover parties, we've had lots of candy being handed out, kids calling home on their cell phones, which leads to a lot of homesickness we've found. So, Morelby will tell you all that. I think we're also going to have a little chaperone meeting one night towards the spring, probably May or April. Once we get people committed to chaperones, we'll do it joint Bird and Johnson probably, and Francis will come down and just go over stuff for half an hour, 45 minutes with all the chaperones. So, anything I forgot, Bill?
I think so.
Okay. So we have some time for questions.
Communication between...
Oh, I think it's on one of these forms, but yeah. During the day, if you need to communicate with camp, you can call the school, and they will call down. The camp's phone number is obviously on their website. You can always call directly to them if you really need something, although we prefer you go through the school. At night, Miss Esmond usually leaves her phone number, and she'll get in touch with the camp as well, because the office is not staffed 24 hours a day, but they all have cell phones. There's a way to get in touch with all the teachers 24 hours a day. Your child's homeroom teacher, by the way, will be sleeping over. All the teachers who are there with those students sleep over pretty much all the nights. So if there are 3 homerooms going, there'll be at least 3 teachers sleeping over, probably more, plus all the chaperones, plus a bunch of their staff. So they are supervised 24 hours a day. They are very scheduled. There's no time where they can just wander off or do anything like that. Even during rec time, it's a set area. They always have supervision, and it's for a limited period of time, just to let them run around for a little while. But they're scheduled the entire time. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you still doing a blog?
We're going to try to do the blog. We're going to try to do, yeah, we used Instagram last year, and we had a Twitter feed as well. So we're going to be keeping all that up. I don't see any reason why not. I think more communication is probably better. So feel free to ask any questions now, with me or Francis. Yep.
Can you just briefly compare how the 2.5-day program and the 5-day program curriculum differs?
Well, we dropped, I think, a few of the more social activities from Alton Jones. We used to have a campfire. Instead, we're going to have a few other, well, we're not having the campfire. And we're taking away a couple of the, what do we have? Water?
Wetlands.
Yeah. Wetlands. Thank you, Ms. Bogardis. Wetlands, ecology. But I think the supplemental part that we're doing with the 2-day trip, we've heard from Bird that they're very good. So academically, I think it's going to be equally as good. Obviously, there's a difference in going for 2 nights and going for 4 nights. Some easier, some harder. Well, basically, it's different. So, but academically and curriculum-wise, I think it's going to be just as good.
So you say that they add in the marine environment, which we can get with the 5-day program.
Yeah.
That's something that we're actually adding.
Since we haven't been, we have 2 wonderful Bird teachers, assistant principal and teacher, who have been to both of those programs. Maybe you could just briefly describe each one, the day trips?
Sure.
My name's Dave Cuzzy. I teach grade 6 at Bird. Save the Bay, the students it'll consist of, they'll have some classroom activities where they'll do some experiments with the aquatic life that they find on the shoreline. They'll also go on a short boat ride where they'll do some testing in the bay. They explore the rocky shoreline. They do some classroom activities based on watersheds and basically the effect that people have on the environment. So you kind of get a little bit of that. The wetland you're missing gets in Narragansett. Lloyd Center is a science center, and what it is basically, there is several different activities. One is the kids will explore the woodlands, and they'll talk about the different things they find. They'll explore. It's very hands-on. The kids actually walk through a salt marsh. We tell the kids to bring another set of shoes because they will sink into the very smelly salt marsh. And so, just by no fault of their own, this is what happens. They also have an estuary which they get to explore. Some kids like to get more into the exploring than others. So depending on, you know your kids better than they do, so in terms of how deeply they're going to get into the exploring. So you might want to help them with the clothes. You might want to bring an extra set of socks or maybe even an extra shirt, depending on how wet they get. They also have a touch museum inside the actual Lloyd Center where they can play around with the aquatic life that's there. And then at the very top of it, there's an observation tower that looks over, I don't know what body of water that is, but looks over the harbor basically that the Lloyd Center sits on. Those are the 2 day trips.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
Are there any other schools that will give you the same week we have?
At Alton Jones?
Yes.
No.
No.
If you do, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you have questions that you're not comfortable asking in front of a whole group, you can certainly talk to me or any of the teachers afterward, or, there's plenty of time until the trip. You're welcome to give us a call and discuss anything you need to.
Yeah, and the person who you should get in touch with usually is your child's homeroom teacher. They're going to be the person to collect all the forms and to get in touch with you about anything. So that's your first line of contact, basically, is your child's homeroom teacher. Go ahead.
You mentioned that the cabins house anywhere from 6 to 24 kids.
Mhm.
How do you assign the children
Um,
each particular room?
We give them a form that they can write down 3 names on of 3 of their friends. We do it closer to camp, usually only about a month away, so because we know 6th grade friendships change. And
Daily.
yes, exactly. We would do it the day before if possible. They're guaranteed to get 1 person. Usually they end up getting 2 or all 3 because they figure out ways, oh, you pick these 3 people, I'll pick these 3, and they make a group of 4, 5, 6 people, and then they all picked each other. And we try to put them with as many friends as possible. So that's how we do it. It also depends on the number of the breakdown of boy-girl ratio because the cabins, like Francis said, are all a little bit different. So there's some cabins that hold 22, some that hold 16. So it just depends on how that breaks out for each half of the trip. So the field groups are very random. They all know each other. They're all in 6th grade together. So it's just a mix of boys and girls in each field group. So during the day, they're in their field groups. They eat meals in their field groups. Cabin time, and at night, they sleep with their cabin group. So 2 different groups like that. So. Go ahead.
When it was a 5-day program, we wrote letters ahead of time so they could receive letters. Is that?
It's certainly possible. The mail is slow to get to Alton Jones, so you can certainly send it beforehand. If you send it the week before, they'll either get it in the first half or the second half. You know, some kids get all their mail the first day, 7 letters saying how much they're missed by their parents, and, the very first day they're there. So it's always nice for kids to get letters, something that we're not used to getting as much anymore.
Yeah, just make sure you write down the name of the school, and if you can, which half of the week, that helps us out a little bit. You can send it as early as you want to, that's fine. I wouldn't recommend sending it during that week, though, because our mail doesn't come in until about 4 in the afternoon. So, you know, it sort of backs up as we go into the week.
Once we get closer, we will give you all that information, like the bus information, what time to be here, Alton Jones' address, what you should put on the letters. All that other information comes about a month before camp.
But no care packages.
Yes. They're actually not allowed. They have to send them back. Or the teachers get them. So, yeah. Yes, exactly. Chaperones, there you go. I think there was another question back. Yeah?
Quick question. When will you notify the kids who will be in the cabin?
Before that week. Probably.
Were you saying this a couple years ago, we're going to get off the bus and find out who's in
Nope.
the cabin?
Nope. I think last year they found out before also, and this year they will find out by that Friday at least. So, but if you do have concerns when it gets closer to that time, we can't really take requests for people that they want in their cabins, but if there are people who your children have a history of really not getting along with, not just for a day or 2, but over a period of time, then please let us know and we'll try to accommodate that as much as possible. There's a limited amount we can do because there are 2 cabins, probably of boys, 2 cabins of girls, but there are separate sides within those cabins also, separated by walls, and it's good. It's better that we're aware of that than not aware. So.
And even though there may be issues the elementary school was aware of, we don't know that. They're 6th graders, so if there are concerns for any reason, please let us know. I've had parents say to me, well, you should have known they didn't get along in elementary school. Well, we don't know that, and so if we can avoid that, it's helpful, but we won't know that unless you tell us. So appreciate that.
Yep.
Is a training cabin that doesn't have a bathroom, is it true by splitting the groups up that that cabin will be used?
Correct.
Yep. Any other questions? Again, if there's anything you want to address of a more personal nature or talk to any of us right now, we're around. Otherwise, email us or get in touch with us. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.